Jack Hanma attempted to land a blow on the mighty Hanayama, but in an instant he was countered with the almighty blow. Today we know what this actually did, a combination of most of our predictions. This is exactly what happened. Hanayama was able to counter and land his monstrous build-up strike, seemingly blitzing the likes of Jack in this situation, an insane speed showing which continues throughout this chapter. However, as predicted by a lot of us, Jack with his almighty Gaodao was able to do some damage to Hanayama. Not to the same extent of taking a finger like he did against Sukune, but blood has indeed been drawn. Welcome to my breakdown of BAKI RAHEN chapter 43. Something that highlights we may be doomed when it comes to this fight, as once again we are going on another break, very unfortunate. But let's see what this fight's beginning actually revealed to us. So Jack going for the initial strike and Hanayama being able to do this in an instance is quite impressive all things considered, and the impact of his blow was highlighted to the utmost extreme. Jack was dropped all the way on his back, similar to what the Hanma did to the likes of Pickle in their street interaction previously in this manga, highlighting just how much stronger Hanayama has likely gotten again. As going into this fight, based on Jack's initial response, it seems like he's indeed serious, an aspect that was greatly enhanced by his conversation with his father Yujiro Hanma, who spent an entire chapter building up and low-key glazing Hanayama, preparing Jack for this fight and ensuring he's actually going to be biting. As we see here, Hanayama's fist is indeed bleeding, with one of his goons being shocked that he's bleeding as well, never seeing it before, which just shows how new he is. But we know Hanayama does in fact bleed, we've seen it many times. But Jack's Gaodao may be the winning factor when it comes to this fight for him based on the performance thus far. But a key aspect is it's only going to be 5 minutes of a street fight due to it concluding when the police show up, meaning the favourable aspect of Gaodao, where he can slowly whittle down his opponent as he lands more bites with the blood loss aspect, a very common trend in many of his fights since he returned to the story. Something that seemingly or likely won't be a factor due to the 5-minute time limit, meaning Hanayama may have a somewhat advantage in this situation, but Jack so far is able to deal with that direct blow with not an insane amount of difficulty. He seemingly isn't injured that much, while Hanayama is already bleeding. But following that, the Yakuza proceeds to take his iconic stance, the one that doesn't involve any sense of defending, Hanayama's biggest downfall as a fighter, leaving him open for many of his opponent's attacks, a key factor that has resulted in his defeat many times in the BAKI story, but is also why Hanayama is so goated, solely relying on offense, the pure attacking machine. You love to see it. However, what he does next against Jack is absolutely wild and likely has gotten many people to believe that current Hanayama has indeed surpassed current Pickle. He takes his iconic stance and once again is setting up another build-up punch. Then we see this panel, Jack's reaction to what's going on, then the Yakuza outright blitzing Jack to land another blow. Bro's speed has never been this insane before. Previous times in the BAKI story, it's more so been a weird effect. Hanayama goes for his build-up punch, something that leaves his opponent more so stunned, just confused on what he's doing, or reneging or just manipulating them to allow Hanayama to land the blow regardless of how slow it seems to be or easy to dodge. But this time, the speed is highlighted to the utmost extreme, so perhaps we are seeing a serious Hanayama in this fight, and it seems as though this time when he lands the blow, it's definitely going to leave some major impact. But the question, similar to the previous chapter, remains, was Jack able to counter with his Gaodao this time and perhaps take a finger? More so than before, I don't think that's the case. I'm guessing Hanayama was indeed able to blitz him, which is absolutely wild considering Jack's speed portrayal since his return to the story. Which now brings us to why I titled today's video Jack vs Hanayama is doomed. So while this chapter for a lot of people was peak, I agree, because Hanayama's almighty punches being unleashed for an entire chapter is exactly what we want and expect from him, but considering the breaks, it seems as though this is going to be a very long fight, and in the context of only one attack being thrown a chapter, the length of this does remind me of back during the sumo arc when Hanayama was facing his opponent in the tournament. A similar thing was occurring. The Yakuza would throw one of his punches, he would land, and that would be the entire chapter. We then would go on various breaks of the manga, a point in the series where I actually dropped BAKI for quite some time. I'm not saying a similar thing is going to happen now, of course not. Jack's arc is currently going on and is indeed why I believe he's going to win this fight, or likely be on the favourable position before the 5-minute time limit is up. But with that said as well, I do hope we get to a point where they're around equal in the 5 minutes, the police begin to show up, but due to the insanity of what's going on, they just choose to watch and their fight continues. That's what I hope happens, but the question on everyone's mind is, how has Hanayama gotten so fast and seemingly strong thus far? A lot of people in the fandom still find it impossible to believe that current Hanayama could be stronger than the likes of Pickle, but based on what we've seen already, it seems like that could very well be the case, which does connect to a common trend throughout the BAKI world. As we get introduced to new story developments, future arcs, the villains from previous arcs or main antagonists outside of course Yujiro, who manages to remain number 1 since the very start until now. Outside of that, the power ranking within the story tends to change quite a bit. Pickle's introduction to the BAKI story I believe happened in around 2006. That's when the Pickle arc officially started, or I believe may have concluded in the manga around that time, meaning it's been a very long time since Pickle has been the main antagonist, the main focal point of the story. While changing many aspects and being an absolute monster in that regard, characters always get stronger in a series like this, a battle fighting series like most others, particularly the more main or relevant characters. Hanayama's been around since pretty much the start of the manga until now. He is indeed a very relevant main side character who was built up by BAKI when this fight was first set up, and then had an entire chapter being built up by the absolute strongest Yujiro Hanma. So of course he's going to have a pretty solid performance against current Jack, all things considered. And I'm absolutely loving it. My two favourite characters are finally fighting after all these years in the BAKI story. But with all that, shout out to these channel members, these absolute mad lads. That's it guys, peace.